So a few videos ago I said that I couldn't find the plate mount for my camera, and that's why I was holding the camera as I am doing now. I subsequently found my plate mount, and I had the camera on my tripod. The tripod was on, I was at a film shoot. The tripod was on a table at a park that looked like it was 5 or 6 planks of wood held together by nails from like 1850. Subsequently, the tripod fell off of the table. The camera was fine, the lens was fine, the tripod was fine, except a little piece of plastic broke off of it. Maybe an inch long, and like a quarter of an inch wide. And unfortunately, that piece of plastic was part of the piece that mounted the plate to the tripod. So I lost that much, and now the tripod is completely useless. So that's why I'm holding it now. This video is going to be a little bit different from the kind of videos that I usually do. The nonsense, basically, that I usually do. But today I'm going to talk about the filmmaker Shane Carruth. If I were 2 years younger, I would probably say that he's my favorite filmmaker. But, well... Alright, let's start at the beginning of Shane Carruth's film career. Take everything that I say in this video with a grain of salt, because he's a notoriously private person, so I might not get everything exactly correct, and I don't want to get sued. I don't know if you can see, my shelves are like broken, like falling apart. I got that shelf thing from frickin' IKEA, and like less than 2 months later, there's supposed to be 5 shelves on it, and 3 of the 5 shelves are just like sitting on the floor because they won't connect like back into it. Shane Carruth was born on New Year's Day in 1972. He attended Stephen F. Austin University as a mathematics major, and he got a bachelor's degree in mathematics. For several years, Shane Carruth worked as a developer of flight sim software. He had long been an aspiring writer, but he eventually realized that what he wanted to write were not novels or short stories, but screenplays. Despite not having a film degree nor any film experience, he began writing these screenplays. He wrote the film Primer, which was shot in 2002 on a $7,000 budget. Primer is a masterclass in writing for your budget and low-budget filmmaking in general. And when the film was finally released over 2 years later, it received many different awards and made substantial box office returns. The story of Primer as a film is the gold standard for what low-budget filmmakers aspire to. The film was well received by critics, it received many awards, it got distribution, and it led to Shane Carruth's next project, bringing him into contact with Steven Soderbergh and David Fincher, who both planned on producing his next film, A Topiary, with a projected budget of $20 million. A Topiary was, like Primer, a science fiction story involving complex, high-concept ideas. However, unlike Primer, the main characters of A Topiary weren't 30-year-old software developers, they were 10 to 12-year-old kids. Traditionally, a film script equals to about 1 page for every 1 minute. But the screenplay for A Topiary, which can be found pretty easily online, includes a note on the front page stating that it does not adhere to this rule. The screenplay for A Topiary is about 245 pages long, and would translate roughly to a 2.5-hour movie. Despite the unusual nature of the script, it was passed around Hollywood, with filmmaker Rian Johnson praising it, and the script led to Shane Carruth's many meetings with potential producers. It was around this time Shane and Rian Johnson discussed time travel, with Rian planning to soon make the film Looper. Though Shane's ideas were ultimately scrapped for being, quote, too expensive, he is still a credited time travel consultant on Looper. Shane Carruth worked on A Topiary for years, putting together a sizzle reel, which can also be found online, doing some preliminary VFX work, which can be found in Upstream Color, and taking many meetings with potential producers. The process of trying to make A Topiary took 7.5 years of meetings, but the film never materialized. Many people speculated that a 2.5-hour movie starring kids, despite not being a kids movie, for tens of millions of dollars for a director with just one movie on his resume, albeit a very well-received one, made investing in the film a high risk. Others speculated that Shane, who had directed, acted in, composed for, edited, and shot Primer, was a control freak and would not compromise or change the script to A Topiary in any way, which is what led to the film not being made. There's a more likely third reason that will become obvious later. So it's now late 2011, almost 8 years after the award-winning Primer has been released, and Shane hasn't made another movie. This led to him feeling understandably frustrated, and he started writing a simple, low-budget movie that would be called Upstream Color. Just like Primer, Shane Carruth performed many duties for his second film, Upstream Color. He acted in one of the lead roles, he produced it, he directed it, he wrote it, he composed the music for it, he edited some of it, although filmmaker David Lowery, who directed A Ghost Story, is also a credited editor. At some point during the production of the film, he started dating the other lead, actress Amy Seimetz. There was much anticipation for Upstream Color in the time leading up to its screening at film festivals. Primer and Upstream Color couldn't be more different. While Primer is heavy on dialogue, only about a third of Upstream Color has any dialogue at all. While Primer has a handful of locations, Upstream Color has dozens of locations. Despite these differences, however, Upstream Color beat the odds and also became well-received and won awards at various film festivals. Anyone who looked at Shane Carruth's career could now see that his first film wasn't a fluke. He had a track record of making complex, well-received films in a relatively short time period. About 18 months between the announcement of Upstream Color and its screening at Sundance. So it seemed like, for now, things were looking up for Shane Carruth. For the next couple of years, Shane acted in a handful of short films while writing his third film, The Modern Ocean. This film would be about the lives of people who work on international shipping and trading routes, and would feature, quote, a cast of thousands, end quote. Just like A Topiary, this script, this time 181 pages, was very long and ambitious, but Shane had now proved himself with not one, but two low-budget, well-received movies. In 2014, it was announced that The Modern Ocean's cast would include a ton of A-list actors, including Asa Butterfield, Daniel Radcliffe, Keanu Reeves, Chloe Grace Moretz, Anne Hathaway, Tom Holland, and Jeff Goldblum. While this film was in development, Shane was on fire. He composed the music for his now fiance's TV show, The Girlfriend Experience. He had a small acting role in The Swiss Army Man, as well as a lead role in The Dead Center, which he also produced. He was a credited consultant on the Allegiant movie in the Divergent series. He helped edit A Ghost Story, but unfortunately, by 2018, The Modern Ocean was officially shelved. He would later release the full screenplay for The Modern Ocean, alongside some music he had composed for the project. This would be the second time Shane had prepared to make a big budget movie, and essentially had the rug ripped out from under him. To add on top of that, by 2019, he and Amy Seimetz, who by now had become a director in her own right, directing several episodes of Donald Glover's Atlanta, had broken off their engagement and broken up. It seemed like Hollywood just didn't want to foster the talent of somebody who was so uniquely creative. Right? Why else would he be so doomed with his various film projects? Well, in July of 2020, Shane tweeted a photo of the Upstream Color soundtrack on Twitter. Underneath the album was a restraining order, with both Shane and Amy's names visible. The wider attention to this photo led to some details of the case becoming public. In 2016, Shane allegedly choked her until she was struggling to breathe. He allegedly told her, quote, "You are Shiva, the goddess of death. I see you. I will know when it's time for you to be done. You should be scared. You don't know what I'm going to do. You should be scared." End quote. A forensic psychologist who served as a consultant on the report said that Shane had made, quote, "direct homicidal threats." In an email sent in 2018, Shane said, quote, "You want to fight me? Bring it. I will kill you." End quote. In August of 2019, he said, quote, "I know exactly where your house is. You'll never beat me." End quote. He also said, quote, "Understand how dangerous you are making this encounter." End quote. During the hearing for the restraining order, Shane interrupted the judge at least a dozen times. Amy Simet's lawyer said that Shane had broken the no contact order at least 20 times in the last month. The restraining order was later granted to Amy Simet's. The public's awareness of this case coincides with Shane saying he was retiring from filmmaking and publishing the script and music for The Modern Ocean and the sizzle reel for A Topiary. It seems like Shane Carruth isn't going to be making movies anytime soon.